Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everybody. My name is MiAh the King, and you should never trust stairs. They're always up to something. Now, thank you so much for clicking on my video, and if you're wondering why you're even here watching this tiny video, first off, maybe it's because of the funny one-liner jokes at the start of every single one of my videos, cringy they may be, or perhaps it's because I'm one of the few reviewers out there who can help you figure it out if you need a game in 10 minutes or less. Don't believe me? Then stick around and find out. Now then, today we're taking a look at a game just released on Steam called Avowed, or rather, it released a week ago, and I am utterly against the premium editions bullshit on Steam, so I refuse to buy them early. I'm like the rest of you, and I ain't got the money to freaking afford $100 to play it a week early, so, you know, screw that. Anyway, it was developed by Obsidian Entertainment and published by Xbox Game Studios, released not in early access and selling for $70 flippin' dollars, of course. So, what even is this game anyway? Well, from the same developers who brought you South Park, Knights of the Old Republic 2, Fallout New Vegas, and even Pillars of Eternity, they bring us another game hopefully to fall in legendary status like their previous works, and boy oh boy, do they know exactly who they are. They take legitimately every opportunity to remind you of the great stuff they did in the past, tooting their own horn over and over again. In the beginning, you have scenes from previous games, and look, there's Fallout New Vegas. Look, see it there? Oh, there it is again, and there it is again, and there it is again. Throughout the game, you'll find other little hints about their previous amazingness. Boy, they really want you to know everything they've done in the past, don't they? Like, remember, look, we're really good. We did all this really good stuff. See, I don't know why they're doing that. I really hope they're not overcompensating. Needless to say, with that track record, I have very, very high expectations from these guys for this game. Now then, Avowed is... well, here's the gist of it without spoilers. You are a god touched, basically. Someone who, while within the womb, was touched by a god. Pretty self-explanatory. Anyway, it causes you to have freaky facial marks that are quite ugly, and I hate them. You are skilled, though, and so the emperor of your empire takes you in as a powerful tool, and you work your way up through the ranks, and yada yada yada. Now he sends you to a colony on a cursed island to help them figure out a solution to the corruptive influence on said island, and I'm not going to say any more. The rest is for you to discover. So, the plot so far is just kind of average, but I'm going to go into that later. For now, let's dive into the good and the bad, as always, shall we? So, the first positive point for me was the graphics. Honestly, I don't know what I was expecting. I always see advertisements of video games and think to myself, it looks okay, I guess. But man, once you get in, it turns into something else. I mean, just look at how good this looks. Oh, what's that? I'm just showing a cutscene so it doesn't count? Fine, here's some actual footage. Happy now? The game looks beautiful. In terms of every freaking regard, the game looks phenomenal. The attention to detail is amazing. The contrast is amazing. The color choices are perfect. The shadows and lighting and the effects are all great. The game looks freaking fantastic, and I simply couldn't get enough of it. Hell, the video you're watching doesn't even do it any justice. It's simply beautiful to play. Next up for the positives was the sound design. Again, like the graphics, everything sounds awesome. The sound effects from the blades, the spells, the creatures, the ambiance, the guns, it all sounds perfectly realistic even for a fantasy game. The voice acting is done very well too, and never once, or at least so far, have I found anyone's voices to be super cringy or ridiculous or sound like they're not trying. As for the music, it's actually surprisingly the more weaker aspect here, as for a game of this magnitude, I definitely expected the music to just be as explosive as everything else. Now, for me, music is kinda not really the most important thing in video games. So, to me, it wasn't that bad of a thing here, but it was still surprisingly lackluster during my playtime. But it wasn't bad, just, you know, not as good as I wanted it to be. Next up for the positives is the gameplay. Now, the gameplay here is pretty legit. It's not next-gen or anything, but it's definitely good. There's a lot to explain here, so I'm going to try and keep it brief, or I'd end up talking about it all day. But you ever played any first-person medieval fantasy RPG ever, like Kingdom Come Deliverance or Skyrim or Fallout? It's basically that, which would make a lot of sense. The differences here is, unlike a lot of those games, in this game, a lot of the environment is untouchable, which is kind of disappointing. There's also a feel of lacking immersion in a lot of ways, but I'll go into that in the negatives later. For now, the gameplay is very interesting. There's different routes to travel depending on how you wish to play, obviously, like a stealth build, warrior build, wizard build, etc. They function as you'd expect them to, but in this game you have unique godlike skills since you're god-touched. So far, my favorite is the stealth stab that you get to use. I think it's really super cool. Definitely try it out. The game kind of makes you try it out, so you're going to get to try it out anyway, but it's probably the coolest thing I've seen so far. The way magic is used in this game is also pretty cool, and it's very different from how I've seen in other games. You use a wand like Harry Potter, and I'm really hoping there are staffs in the game, because I prefer those to wands. I'm not a big wand fan user guy, but the magic is still really well done, with spells going onto your quick bar that you have learned yourself, and a grimoire you can use in place of like a shield for your offhand that will allow you to use alternate spells, different spells that you haven't learned yet. Combat is really well done, in my opinion. It's fast-paced, but not too much. It's got a touch of complexity in its dodging and blocking mechanics, along with its power attacks and other unlockable skills, and it flows very smoothly and works cohesively despite how many enemies you may be facing. The game also has different dialogue options and important choices you can make and different paths you can take. It has a camping system, companion system, which that one really surprised me. I wasn't expecting companions, so that was actually a very pleasant surprise. It has crafting and enchanting and cooking system, scavenging system, skills, and, well, just a shit ton of content for the gameplay. I mean, it's a first-person open-world RPG made by the same people who made Fallout New Vegas. It's what you'd expect it to be. In terms of overall quality, the gameplay was just a lot of fun for me. It was super engaging and really interesting. Not too fast, not too slow, and everything feeling like it mattered, like there was weight to everything, which is a good sign. There's even a solid balance between attacking, blocking, dodging, and both stamina and mana usage, which is hard to do in video games. To make a long story short, the gameplay was fun, engaging, cohesive, and just overall well designed. Next up for the positives was the stability and the user interface. The user interface, in my opinion, was about what it needed to be. It's clear, it's concise, it's not hard to understand or navigate, and despite playing on PC, everything felt right in terms of navigation and controls. And it didn't look ugly, which is good too. As for the stability, I did have a few issues with the frame rate dropping, but for the most part, I never encountered anything super, bad. This isn't Bugthesda after all, so it's nice to see a game similar to theirs but not broken in 1,000 different ways. No clipping, crashing, freezing, or anything, just some FPS drops, and hopefully those can get cleaned up pretty fast. And last but not least for the positives is the production value, the depth, and the mechanics. Overall, the game has a pretty high production value with lots of different cutscenes, great character customization options, reactive world, and even some freaking amazing scene transitions where you barely even notice that you just went from cutscene to gameplay. There's tons of depth here in terms of skills, loot, characters, and the adventure as a whole. And as for the mechanics, well, I briefly mentioned earlier in regards to the controls, and yeah, the mechanics here work great. If you cast an ice spell on an enemy, then they freeze. You can headshot people. There's stuff blocking your path and you don't have that fire spell anymore? Well, your companion does, so use them to burn it down. Speaking of your companion, are they annoying and constantly in your way? No, they're always right behind you, never crowding you or blocking you. Useful and responsive in battle, and charming as always.
Paradise's MiAh, more or less. Most people out here aren't fond of established hierarchies and titles, so we made up some new ones.
Ah, my boy, Brandon Keener, back to lull me into another fake best friend in a video game, and just like in Mass Effect, he does a fantastic job here as well, and he's already won me over. Alright, so that's all I can say positively about the game. Now we're going to go on to the negatives. But before that, I wanted to thank you for sticking around this long. And if you haven't subscribed yet, then now's your chance. Also, make sure you hit that bell button. I review random games at random times, and you never know when I'm going to review something you didn't even know you wanted. So hitting that bell lets you know every time I post a new video. So hit it and stay informed. Alright? Alright. Also, this video might be longer than 10 minutes. I'm trying really hard to keep it less than that, and I don't want to be a liar, but I got a lot to say in the negative, so I'm going to do my best. So the first negative for me was the lack of immersive qualities in the game. Now, maybe I'm a bit influenced by my recent playthroughs of Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 and 2, but I was definitely hoping for a much bigger and more renowned development team that they one up those guys, but unfortunately no, they decided not to focus on a lot of aspects for some reason. When you go to craft or cook, there's zero animation, just boring menu screens like we've seen 1,000 times. Or the fact that there's zero romantic interests or options in the game, which I always love to see in RPGs. Like, to me, personally, having no romance is like a serious flaw in my personal opinion. I mean, people to this day still argue over who their favorite love interest in a game is over 10 years old. By the way, Tali Zora Vos Normandy for the win. So to me, in a role-playing game, at least having the option for romance is just key, and I feel like they really missed something big by not giving that to us. There's campsites that you can set up throughout the game, but at the campsite there's nothing to do. There's no option to sit, no option to sleep, no option to do anything other than use the boring crafting menus or talk to companions. So there's very clearly a lack of depth in terms of the immersive components that makes some of the best RPGs out there, that make them timeless. It makes the game lean a little too much towards action-adventure and away from RPG, which kind of bums me out, to be honest. And if that's the kind of things not included in the game, then it does lower my overall expectations for the rest of the game. Not to mention all the NPCs just standing there. The fact that you can't hunt animals for parts, and there's a lot of other stuff missing to make the game feel alive. That if I continue talking about it, it'd be the rest of the video, so I just gotta move on for now. Basically, immersion sucks. Next up for the negatives is the writing. Now, I'm sorry, but it's just not that great. Now, it's not overly bad. I don't want you thinking I hate it. It's just very painfully average. And when everything else in the game is pretty damn good, it makes it more of a letdown. Now, the dialogue isn't Dragon Age Veilguard bad, but it's not exactly super interesting or intriguing either. I was mostly skipping through a lot of the dialogue because I was bored, which can also be said of the storyline. Oh no, we gotta go to a colony on an island suffering from a parasitic-like curse type thing. Super original, guys. I mean, Greedfall already did this exact fucking thing with gunpowder weapons and all. I mean, it's pretty much the exact same game in terms of storyline so far. So yeah, the writing and dialogue are subpar in my opinion. I wasn't really that invested in my character either, since the beginning of your story was all just summed up in a brief cutscene. I mean, remember back in the 15 years ago when Dragon Age Origins released, where your origin was actually you playing before getting to the main story about your life before it all happened? That game came out forever ago, and it's weird how that game was super freaking popular and amazingly well designed and developed, and yet no one has tried to emulate it yet. But the story doesn't grip me. I'm not super interested or caring about it because I have no understanding or investment in the world or any of its characters. And last but not least for the negatives is the price tag. I know these guys brought us a lot of great games in the past. They make that painfully obvious. But I feel like $70 for this game is perhaps a bit too much when you think of all that should have been included here and wasn't. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 released for $60 and has more RPG than this game. And for all you naysayers out there, yes, I definitely can compare the two because both of them are advertised as first-person RPG open world games. And I'd be more inclined to call this action-adventure than I would RPG, simply for all the immersive, in-depth qualities missing here. But the point I'm trying to get at is that if Kingdom Come can release for $60, then this should have released for the same, let alone charging $30 more for the privilege of playing it early. It's definitely not worth $100, and it's not worth $70, but not by much. I would say $60 would be fine, and you'd be getting what you paid for, so I think it's just a little bit overpriced. Again, not a huge negative, but something I felt I had to mention. Alright, so what are my final thoughts? Well, I think it's a pretty good game. It's obviously missing a lot of stuff to truly make it something legendary, but it's not a bad game. I think if I had bought this game for like 40 or 50 bucks, I'd have been amazed by it, blown away by its quality and production value and gameplay design. But for $70, with the premium editions and whatnot, I was definitely expecting a lot more. I can't believe I'm saying this, but in Starfield, I feel like you got much larger, more immersive, more vast experience, but for the same price. The same could be said about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I just can't get over the game missing so much. If you're going to market it like a AAA game, sell it like a AAA game, then expect the same kind of disdain as AAA games, because they don't exactly have a good rep right now. Don't get me wrong, I've been a long-time lover and supporter of Obsidian and the games they've made, and I've enjoyed almost all of them, and I'm sure I'll enjoy this one as well, but I'm sick and tired of them simply not going all the way with their games. They keep tripping over the finish line. If they'd given this game a lot more immersive components and to make it feel more alive, it would have been a legend of a game, one to truly compete to take the crown from Skyrim, finally. But they didn't. Or they didn't understand, or they don't know what gamers are looking for. This game will not go down in history like Skyrim or Fallout New Vegas. It's a good game, but it could have been so much fucking better, and I think that's what irritates me the most, and it's just it'll come and go, like the Outer Worlds did. However, despite all that, I still personally think the game was very well designed and well put together. Yes, it's lacking in some way, so overall it's ultimately going to depend on you, the player. If you wanted an in-depth, first-person role-playing game reminiscent of Skyrim or Fallout New Vegas, then you're going to want to look elsewhere. It just isn't that. But if you're looking for something more action-oriented, with glimmers of immersion like the Outer Worlds, which they also developed, then you're just getting more of that here. Like, I liked Outer Worlds too, but it suffered from the exact same problems this game suffers from. Not enough depth. Not enough immersion, not enough lasting power, and that's the problem. Now, I could keep going on and on, but this video has already taken way too long, so let me end it by saying that, most of the time my reviews are less than 10 minutes, so I apologize this one was longer. But it's a good game. It's just more of the same from these guys, that's all. They changed up a few things, but it's ultimately just the Outer Worlds, but fantasy. And honestly, I was looking for something to replace Skyrim, not to replace Outer Worlds. Do I recommend it? Sure, like I said, it's not bad. It is a good game. Hell, it's a great game, just not what I expected and not what I wanted. I'm still not sure if I feel it's worth $70 either, but again, that's up to you. I personally don't regret my purchase, and I am looking forward to see what else this game has in store for me. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, with a special thanks to those of you who stuck around to the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you all again on my next adventure. So until then, I bid you all farewell.